Hi, Shane Plays here. And on this video, I'm going to be talking about the Greyhawk Initiative, which is a completely optional playtest, not even an official variant initiative system developed just for playtesting and for having fun with by the D&D lead for Wizards of the Coast, Mike Mearls. He just recently published it via Unearthed Arcana on the Wizards of the Coast D&D site, and a lot of people are kind of checking it out and in many cases having fun with it. So uh, why it's called Greyhawk Initiative is it's basically kind of a nod to older editions of D&D when Initiative was in some cases more complicated. Uh, and Greyhawk was of course Gary Gygax's setting. That's where Tensor and Bigby and all that's all from Grayhawk. So that was his thing. Where I think Blackmore was Dave Arneson's the co-creator of D&D with Gary Gygax. But anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about this initiative system. From Mike Mearls, I think it's really neat. I've read through it. I've had one play test session with it where I actually got to play. I usually DM, but I played under a buddy of mine named Wes Taylor, who DM'd. He was like, "Yeah, I'll DM it," and so several of us got together and checked it out. So basically, again, Mike Mearls developed this. If you if you print out or read the PDF online or whatever, there's a gray box right on the front of the PDF that I'm going to read right here to put some people's minds at rest here. If you don't like this initiative system, you don't have to use it. Okay, so this is not official material. It says it right here. The material here is presented for playtesting and to spark your imagination. These game mechanics are in draft form, usable in your campaign but not refined by final game development and editing. They aren't officially part of the game and aren't permitted in D&D Adventurers League events. If we decide to make this material official, it will be refined based on your feedback and then it will appear in a D&D book. My guess is if it becomes official material, which I have a feeling it might be because there's a lot of people that are thinking it's pretty cool based on what I've seen online and then talking to people personally in my local gaming community. I'm sure it'd be a variant. I don't see this being the main initiative system for D&D anytime soon. As to why, uh, Mike writes here in the PDF, he says the Greyhawk Initiative variant takes a different approach. These rules add a complexity but with the goal of introducing more drama to combat. The order of actions changes during combat, making it impossible to pin on creatures acting in a consistent pattern. Moreover, this initiative system requires a certain amount of strategizing between players ahead of each round's action. So, it gets the players kind of more working together. Um, and he kind of adds this as well. And based on my experience, I would second what he's about to say, what Mike says. He says, if adding chaos and unpredictability to combat sounds like fun, you might like these rules. But if you prefer to keep initiative simple, something that quickly fades in the background during combat, the existing initiative rules are likely better fit for your game. So, having said all that, let's move into what is Greyhawk Initiative. And actually, a question came up during playtesting, and on the face of it, this may sound like a weird question, but it's a really good question. Somebody asks, do you only use this initiative in the Greyhawk setting? And the answer is no. I can see why somebody would think that. It's like, well, it's Greyhawk Initiative. Greyhawk is just, again, Mike Mearls kind of giving a nod to the past. The first edition AD&D had a very involved, intricate or initiative system that had like segments and this and that and the other. And I mean, there's this whole chart out there I found when I was researching recently that, I mean, it's multiple pages where people have tried to collect together all of the rules for D&D or for initiative from first edition D&D, and it's complicated. And evidently it was, at the time it was, spread across different players handbook, the game masters or dungeon master's guide, this, that, and the other, and some of the stuff was confusing. And so anyway, it's kind of a nod back to, you know, the history of D&D is why it's called Greyhawk Initiative. So anyway, okay, having made that point, I think at least twice in this video, and I'm not going to go over every specific rule, because I'm not going to get into like delaying actions and this and that and the other, and uh, reactions and multiple. I'm just going to get into the nuts and bolts of what Greyhawk Initiative is, and then if you want to go deeper, if you're interested, then you can go just check out the PDF. It's online for free, and I'll link it in the show notes. So of course, with D&D as we know it, for several editions now, you roll a d20, and then you add your initiative modifier, dex, and whatever other special abilities or whatever. So there's your d20. Now, you may or may not remember in second edition D&D, you rolled a d10, which would be right here, right? And I guess my video camera is kind of good enough. But as we know it, for several editions now, you've rolled a d20, and then you add your initiative, dex plus whatever, and you want to roll high. And the higher you go, the higher you roll, the faster you'll go in the round. And then everybody takes their, the bad guys and the good guys and all that, they take turns in the round taking their turn. And then it stays the same. The next round comes and everybody stays in the same initiative order. Well, with Greyhawk Initiative, get rid of that. It's totally different. First of all, in Greyhawk Initiative, dexterity, forget dexterity, doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's a dramatic system. For this Greyhawk, just get rid of dexterity. It doesn't count at all for Greyhawk Initiative. Okay, what you do is before you roll initiative, and this is kind of where it harkens back to previous, like AD&D First Edition or whatever. You declare what actions you're going to take before you roll. And you say, for example, well, I'm going to do a ranged attack, or I'm going to do movement, or I'm going to swap gear, I'm going to do a melee attack, I'm going to cast a spell. And then for each action type that you want to take, you add a dice to what you're going to roll. Okay, that's a D4. So, for example, if you say I'm going to do a ranged attack, that's a D4. Let's see if I can get that in the camera. Okay, so that you would add that. Now, if you also want to move, you say I'm going to do a ranged attack, but I also want to be able to move. And moving in Greyhawk Initiative is one of the things that, really throws people off when they're not used to this kind of initiative system. If you don't declare before you roll that you're going to move, and you don't roll for that, and then in the turn it comes up you need to move, if you haven't rolled for it, you can't move. Okay? So you can only do the things you declared for and rolled in advance. So a D4 is ranged attack. Right? There's a D4. And then a D6 is for movement, swapping gear, or any other action that's not covered by any of these other categories. That's a D6. A D8 is a melee attack. Okay? And as far as I understand the rules, if you're allowed to multi-attack, not a bonus action or any of that, but like on your round when you attack twice or whatever, then that's just one D8 for melee attack. And then casting a spell is a D10. Okay? So, let's say that on your round before, you talk with everybody, say, here's what we're going to do this round. And before you roll initiative, and you re-roll initiative every round. It's not static. So, whoever goes first, second, third, fourth on this round, it may be different next round, which I like that. Castles of Crusades does that as well. And I like that a lot. I like changing up the initiative. In fact, I'm thinking about, in my own games, even with the D20 initiative system, re-rolling every round. Yeah, it adds some more time to it, but there's a really cool spontaneity to combat that happens when it's not just, okay, well, I know that 3 rounds from now I'll go before him, so and I really like that element to it. But anyway, so you re-roll every round, and you have to roll the dice for the actions you want to take. So, for example, if you want to move, allow yourself the option to move during your round, whether or not you actually move or not. If you say, I want to be able to move, then you got to roll a D6. And if you want to do a melee attack, you got to roll a D8. So you take those two and you put them together and you roll them, and that's your that's your initiative for that turn. So in this case, I rolled an 8. All right, so that would be my initiative for that turn. And with Greyhawk Initiative, you want to roll low, not high. So the more dice you add to your pool for initiative, the 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 worse your chances are of getting a good initiative. Okay? So if I wanted to, for example, cast a spell and move, then I would roll a d6 and a d10, right? Because the d10 is for the casting the spell, and the d6 is because I want to move. So that would, in this case, I would have rolled an 11, which again, out of a possible max of 16 or a minimum of 2 is not that great. So you kind of start seeing how this works, that, the more I say that I want to be able to do, the chances of my going earlier in the initiative order decrease. So there's a little bit of strategy. You could say, well, I'm just going to melee attack and I'm not going to move because I want to get a lower initiative and be able to go first or early in the round. But then something might come up where your opponent moves before it gets to your turn, and you would need to be able to move in order to melee attack with them. And if you didn't spend the d6 in your declared actions and roll it, you can't move. And I can tell you from personal experience, in the playtest we did, that can upset people if they're not used to this kind of system. They feel very restricted. At the same time, though, it's a little bit of asset management almost. It's a little bit of risk reward, a little bit of strategizing. It's almost a game within itself. You're trying to outthink your opponents and see how are they going to go. Bonus actions. If you're going to take a bonus action, you need to declare it before you roll, and whatever that bonus action is, you've got to roll the equivalent dice. So if your bonus action is a spell, or if your bonus action is a ranged or a melee attack, you have to roll the appropriate dice. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking it's a bonus action. Well, it's not a free action. It's just a bonus action that you get to take on top of your other actions. So you've got to, if a bonus action allows you to take an extra melee attack, you would have to add an extra D8 and roll two. Let me find another D8 here. You'd have to roll 2 D8s to do that, to melee attack, do your normal melee attack, and then also do a bonus action melee attack. So again, for multiple actions, if like, for example, a 5th level paladin gets to attack twice on their round, that's just 1 melee dice because that's part of their normal melee attack. But for a high level fighter that can also, you can do an offhand attack or something for a bonus action, then you would roll an additional D8 or whatever for that. Swapping gear is a D6. Any other movement, swapping gear, or any other action is a D6. So if you want to move and sheath your sword and draw your short bow or hand crossbow or something, that's another D6. So you've got to kind of just take what you think of as the normal initiative system and just get rid of it, and you completely replace it with this initiative system. And then you just go through it, and whoever rolled the lowest. I mean, it's possible to go on an initiative of 1 if you're just taking 1 dice worth of something, and you roll a 1. Remember, Dex doesn't come. You don't add or subtract or anything Dex with this. Dex doesn't come into Greyhawk Initiative. Now, there's some really good examples of play in the PDF document. I'm not going to go into. I'm purposefully trying to make this video short and sweet, especially compared to my other videos, to kind of give you an idea of, do you think this would be for you or not? And if so, go check it out, and go check out the PDF, or maybe, find a group that's going to play test it or something like that. I enjoyed it personally, the play test we did. Now, one thing, we had a couple of players that just, they were getting really frustrated by the movement part of it, having to roll a dice. And what they did, because they didn't want to be restricted, they ended up rolling dice for like every possible thing because they didn't want to be restricted at all. But at the same time, that gave them normally high initiative, so they were going late in the round, and they felt like they were getting screwed. And I'm not minimizing that thought on it, because it is restrictive compared to regular initiative. And we're a playtest environment, and you say, hey, I don't like this, I don't like how this feels or whatever. I do think that if you approach it from a mindset of it's kind of a game within itself, kind of a risk reward, like, I'm not going to roll that dice and I'm going to risk that I won't need to roll that movement dice or whatever dice it is, and then maybe that'll pay off and let me get one over on my opponent. There's different ways to approach it. Having said that, this is very optional, very playtest. So, if people don't like this, I mean, that's totally fine. This is just kind of a new thing that people are playing with. And now, what our DM did, we had a full battle with the regular initiative system. We fought some trolls. He trolled us with trolls, and we had a good fight doing that. And that, at that point, after that fight, it was like, okay, time for a quick break, because it was kind of naturally time for a break anyway. And when we came back, he said, look, here's what I'm going to do, because it's frustrating people with the movement. He said, you don't have to roll for movement. But if all you do in your turn is move and that's it, then you'll just go on an initiative count of 3. But if you're doing anything else, spell, melee attack, ranged attack, or whatever, you just roll that dice and you don't roll the movement dice. So he kind of modified it on the fly, which is fine in a playtest. And that, we kind of move forward, and the players that were frustrated by the movement, seem to enjoy the system more. Now, at the end of the, we kind of did a post-mortem, and there were a couple players that just, they weren't big fans of the system. I liked it. The DM liked it. A couple other people seemed to like it. A couple of people were like, this isn't really my cup of tea. So that's kind of how things went down. And I'll put at the end of this video, I recorded a short video with the DM giving his thoughts. So just to sum up on my thoughts here, one, I would like to do Greyhawk Initiative more. I don't know if I'll introduce it into my main campaign with my players, but I wouldn't mind playing an occasional game, maybe in a side campaign or with one-shots or something like that uses the initiative system, because I did like it. But I'm also, I don't mind things being kind of complicated. I have full intentions of doing a AD&D first edition campaign one of these days that uses the straight up non-modified rules of first edition AD&D. So that kind of stuff attracts me. It doesn't, push me away. That's just the kind of player that I am. And if somebody doesn't like playing like that, that's fine. I mean, there's all these different systems and stuff that are out there. Here's my final thoughts. In general, I liked it. There's some risk-reward dynamics that are based on choices at the beginning of each round that regular initiative doesn't have. The system is not for everyone, as I've already said. You can get screwed, but you can make choices and dice rolls that give you an edge over your opponent. So again, there's that risk-reward thing. And everyone did seem to pay more attention to what other people are doing and talk to each other before the round, like, what are we going to do? So there was that, but I don't know if that was due to it being a different system or is just kind of a novelty of something different, so people were paying a little bit more attention. I would have to play more games to see. That was something that Mike Mearls wanted to encourage with his system, so I did see evidence of that and experience it. Again, I don't know if it was just because this is the shock of something new, so we have to keep playing. And so anyway, that's Greyhawk Initiative. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. I'll also put the link to Greyhawk Initiative in the notes for the video. And now we're going to go to Wes Taylor, who actually ran the playtest game I was in D&D with 5th edition with Greyhawk Initiative. Thanks for watching. Please leave a thumbs up on this video, maybe a comment if you would. That helps me out tremendously. And we will catch you next time on Shane Plays. Here's DM Wes Taylor. All right, Wes, so having run a game with Greyhawk Initiative, what are your thoughts?
It adds a lot to each round because you get to pick what you're going to do. It lets a party strategize better on what they're going to do each round instead of everybody just acting and reacting. I found people that did not plan each round accordingly, found that they did not roll the proper dice to do what they wanted to do when it was their turn. We tried removing the movement dice and just let people pick their actual actions with a free movement.
How did that go?
I think the people that complained felt more placated, and they took more. They were starting to get frustrated and not wanting to play anymore. So I made a change mid-game to try to hold the party together and finish the adventure. And that small change seemed to give them what they needed to try to enjoy it and everything else.
Well, I felt like the game. I think everyone enjoyed the game, especially after you made that alteration.
Yes. Yeah. It's you gotta take that fine line when people are getting frustrated and you see that they're not having fun. I try to make a change to to bring them back into the story and the adventure. You don't
Right.
want a person having hard feelings or feel
Right.
that they've wasted 3 hours to be frustrated and all that. I would like to play this system. I would have fun with it. I think if you're a strategist and you love strategy in your D&D, then this is the initiative system you might want to adopt. But if you're just trying to go through the motions and halfway look at your phone or something, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. You're going to get lost and you're not going to know what your turn is. The mystery of not knowing who's going every turn, you know, because I was counting out 1, 2, 3, and then when it got to your initiative number, you would say, oh, it's my turn, I'm going to act. So even as a dungeon master, it let me react to the party more than, okay, I know this fighter's going to run up and do this. I know no one knows what the battlefield's going to look like midway through the round.
Yeah, it
or at the end
changes
of the,
turn to or round to round. It
yes,
changes.
yeah, and halfway through the round, the entire dynamic of what's going on in the battlefield can be different. Man, for a change on a system that we've been playing for 3 years now, to be able to mix it up and to fundamentally change combat that way was very fun for me.
Cool. All
It was
right.
very fun.
Final thoughts? Was that it, or do you have anything else?
Well, I would suggest to everybody that is feeling stagnant in the way that your 5e games are going to look it up and run it and play it. It adds a change. It lets you keep the same game while putting something else. The only thing I'm not sure on how to work would be haste and those type of issues in the spell. But maybe the developer or something will get feedback and give more information on what they want to do there. But I would definitely suggest it's fun. It's fun to try it. I was skeptical at first until I ran a game and I had fun. I had a blast. And
Right.
I thought it was a successful day. You know, we had a good time.
All right. Well, thanks for your time and for your thoughts, Wes.
Yeah, thanks for playing.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate you.